I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to be looking at another Hellcat tune. This one's going to be a fast Hellcat tune with a 4-3 champion, and the way this works is basically this exact same as the Tower Skull Crusher, fast Tower Skull Crusher team, right? Where basically we have one champion going at a 4-3 ratio. That's going to be Hellcat in this one. Tower in other videos, blocking the damage from the AoEs, and then we have another champion going at a 4-3 ratio. Normally that'd be a Skull Crusher taking the stun. Now, we have Hellcat. We don't need a stun champion because that massive shield is going to be able to do that job for us. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to be able to put up the stats that I am on my champions. So maybe your shield isn't quite big enough to last a full 50 turns. Well, there's some easy ways to fix that. One, lower the HP of your stun targets. That is the easiest way to lower the damage the Clan Boss is doing because that attack is based off of HP. The other thing you can do is obviously raise their defense because that's one of the only mitigating factors to the damage they take. And then the last thing you can do is obviously just pump the defense on Hellcat. By getting more defense on Hellcat, that shield becomes bigger and absorbs more damage. Those are three pretty easy things to do in order to last 50 turns no matter who you're bringing into the team. You saw me do this with rare champions. It doesn't really matter. You can use basically anybody. A naked champion might even be the best option because their HP is going to be so freaking low. So lots of ways to get around that if your Hellcat isn't going to be built as much as mine is. But what I want to do today is I want to look at this team, kind of show you how this works and break it down for you so you have yet another option of how to build a Hellcat unkillable team. And of course, if you guys haven't already, please take the time, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to help support this channel. And if you like today's music, we do have that Soundstripe link down below in the pinned comment and description of this video. So this is the team we're going to be taking in today. You can see we have Saito, Tatura Rhymehide, Thalesia, Narma the Returned, and Hellcat. Now the way this team works is because we do have room for a 4-3 champion, we're able to bring in a 4-3 ratio champion as our DPS. And in this case, that's going to be Narma the Returned. And the reason why is her A3 skill right here. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. It gives us poisons, poison sensitivities, really nice ability. But that 4-3 ratio makes her kind of a lesser champion for a lot of parts of this game. In this case, it's going to be great. We're going to have an almost entirely full debuff bar because of that, and because we're getting it on a 4-3 ratio. That means she's going to be able to put that up every single turn. Those debuffs last for 3 turns. So basically the Clan Boss is going to have at least 3 poisons and poison sensitivity the entire fight. And with Narma's A1 ability, it's a really nice one. It extends the duration of debuffs. So we're going to actually keep that on more than just pretty much the full fight. We'll have a full debuff bar. That's basically how it works, especially because of the next champion we're bringing in, Thalesia. Now, Thalesia is going to be going at a 3-1 ratio, right? Everybody else is normal pretty much, but her A2 ability here has the ability to extend the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. Now, Thalesia is not a great damage dealer. That's her drawback. But on the positive side, she brings a decreased defense debuff. She brings the extension debuff. All these things are really good in working order here. Now, one of the interesting things you're going to notice here is Tatura Rhymehide. The way I prioritize these skills, I'm prioritizing the block debuff skill, the A2 ability, because Tatura's going on a whatever, a 1-1 ratio, right? Taking 1 turn every time. So we want that block debuff to go on at the right time. And with that, we're going to be able to block all the affinity debuffs as well as the stun. Now, it's not going to cover everybody for the stun, right? It's a 2-turn duration, so it's really good. It will block everything for the debuffs, but the stun, because we have a champion going at a 4-3 ratio, that means Narma won't be covered. So that's the one champion we really don't want taking the stun. Everybody else is going to be fine, but not Narma. And then we also have Saito in here just bringing a lot of damage, and of course Hellcat going at that 4-3 ratio. Now, you'll notice the only champion I've actually prioritized their skills with is Tatura. It's the only one we really need to set up. We just need a 1-turn delay to utilize that A2 ability. Everybody else is going to pretty much be full auto. Now, I generally try to prioritize skills, just make sure the AI doesn't mess anything up, but the way this one works, it's going to work fully fine on auto. Now, we might not last a full 50 turns because I stacked them all. I stacked them pretty good. I didn't really focus on their defense or their HP and stuff, so we might not quite get there, but we're going to get pretty darn close, and it'll give you a good example example of how good this type of a team can be. And I like this team a little bit better than the traditional one. Even if you're running at a 1-1 ratio, right? That's a great option always. But now we have champion taking one extra turn. That's just a little bit more damage that we might be able to put out. And so it just depends on what champions you're using, what's going to be best for you, what gear can you put together, and what kind of speeds you can make will really determine which style of team you'd want to run. So real quick, just going through the stats of these champions, you can see Saito right here got pretty good attack, almost 5,700, 195 speed. We'll be going at the top of our turn order here. We've got 100% crit rate, good crit damage, good accuracy in order to land that decreased defense debuff. We don't necessarily need it because we have Thalesia, but I think that helps. And then offense and defensive tree. There's nothing really special going on with the masteries here. I'm just trying to avoid turn meter. You can easily go support or defense tree with any of these champions. It's not going to make a huge difference. Tatura here, we've got him going 5,100 defense, 191 speed, good accuracy. Kind of a weird build because I think I was using him for something else in this game, but he should work just fine for us in this. Thalesia, again, 193 speed. So Tatura's going last in the turn order. Thalesia's in the middle. Saito's in the top, right? We got 100% crit rate, 177 crit damage, good accuracy, 4,900 attack. Pretty decent numbers on Thalesia, but not a huge damage dealer. So I didn't try to pump them up crazy. Narma does have pretty good multipliers, so I did try to build her defense up. You will notice I turned off her weirding dance. We don't really need it. It's a pretty decent damage skill, so we could definitely keep it on, but I wanted to focus on the debuff extension and putting more poisons out there. 248 speed. This is the fastest champion in this build, and that's going to be important to have at that speed in order for everything to work the way we want it to. Got 3,800 attack, 227 crit damage, and good accuracy. I would like to take that up a little bit. Now, I do have her in the support tree here just to kind of extend those debuffs and get a little bit more accuracy in the build. Again, you can easily go down defensive tree. And then last, we have Hellcat. Again, I still have Helly in the support tree, but it doesn't really matter, like I said before. Just helps us with the accuracy and, you know, extending that weaken debuff, which is nice. 5,200 defense. I would actually like to get that higher. I think it'd make the shields bigger and would definitely be good, but, you know, I like that crit damage, 286. It's really nice. So decided to keep him how he was, and that's the team. 241 speed. Obviously, the speeds are going to be the important thing. You need one person at 191, that Tatura roll, slowest to block those debuffs. The other two kind of need to be in that 193 to 195 range. I think it could go up to 197, but just checking the calculator. And then we have one champion Narma at 248, one champion Tatura at 241. Those speeds do have a little bit of range, so just checking the calculator, make sure it works for you, and this should work just fine. All right, so as we go into this run here, it's very simple. It's set up to run full auto. I don't have to do a darn thing to make this work, which is wonderful. I love that. And you can see that it's gonna work just nice for us. So I'm pretty happy with this all in all. The big thing is it does take a few turns to get synced up. It won't be fully in sync until turn 6. However, it's still gonna be affinity friendly thanks to Tatura having a 2-turn duration on that block debuff and using that in between the AoEs. It might not be stun friendly. You're gonna notice here when the stun goes that Narma doesn't have any protection, that Hellcat doesn't have any protection. So it is important to make sure that you have those debuffs working at the right time in order for the stun to be consistent, right? Now, obviously, you know, if somebody like Hellcat takes a stun at the wrong time, you can adjust when they're using their skills so that it will fall into sync later on. But that's just either going to take a little bit more manualing or a little bit of setup on the skill part of things. But the big thing is that you can say affinity friendly, and that's the bigger question here, right? Because you have 4 DPS champions, any of those DPS actually outside Tatura, I suppose, can really just take a hit and take a stun. You don't need to block the debuff for everybody for the stun because they just lose a turn. That's all right. The one champion you probably don't want that to happen with is the 4-3 ratio champion. Now, they'll still have the shield from Hellcat, but they definitely won't be able to block that debuff. And because of the speeds they're going at, they're probably not going to have the kind of defense that you would be able to put on one of your other champions. But that is certainly an option. And in the original build, that's what we had with Skull Crusher. Skull Crusher places unkillable, takes the hit, just gets stunned, and delays their skills. So the skills are almost working on a 1-1 ratio, even if they're running at a 4-3 ratio, right? So that's definitely an option for you. You can certainly do that with, someone like a Skull Crusher, and that would be totally fine. That's an option for you, but you don't need it. And if I can bring more damage in, I'd rather bring more damage in, right? So that's kind of what we're going for here. Now, as far as like optimizing this team, I mean, these are good champions. These are very good champions, and we're going to do very good numbers, but obviously there's better champions out there. If you have those kind of champions, I could easily see one king with this team. We were able to do that at 1-1 ratio. Well, we just added an extra attack per turn. So it's certainly possible to take this team and make it a 1-key team. Obviously the gear requirements are going to be high, the champion requirements are going to be high, but certainly possible. But you've also seen that we can pretty much 2-key no matter what kind of champions we have in there, as long as we're bringing enough debuffs. So there's a lot of different ways to go about doing this team and having really good success. All that said, let's go ahead, jump towards the end. We'll watch the rest of this run, listen to a little music, and then we'll talk about it right at the end. Pretty good, I'd say. That's 58 million, not too bad, and I don't even think we had that really fully optimized. Actually, I know we didn't. You might have noticed there towards the end that Tatura actually took a stun or two. And part of the reason with that, I think, I don't have the exact reasoning behind this, but I'm pretty sure what it does is the clan boss, above all else, will target somebody he feels it can kill. Now, this Tatura has way more HP than anybody else on this team. And like I said, that's an HP attack, which means the clan boss knows they're doing way more damage on Tatura than anybody else. He has like 47,000 HP. And that's about 10,000 more than anybody else on this team. Considerable amount. So he knows he's going to be doing a lot more damage. And my guess is, as a result, he's like, oh, that's my target right now because I know I can kill him. And even though the shield was able to protect Tatura for a little bit, that became a problem. Now, obviously, with this team, I could have even had Narma use her A2, provide a little healing, and maybe this team would have survived a little bit longer, but, I mean, we still made it past 50 turns. It's not too shabby, I would say. And with a little optimization, you can do that too. Now, one of the reasons why I keep this in, so you guys can see that kind of stuff. So you understand these little things aren't unique, right? These are things that everybody has to deal with, even myself. And yeah, you got to make little adjustments to be able to fix those kinds of errors in your team. Or not, because we still did almost 60 million damage. So, you know, maybe it's not even worth the effort or the time. But if that is something that matters to you, if you do want to kind of push for that next level, those are the things that you're going to be looking at. Those are the things that you would try to adjust and figure out. Now, obviously, we weren't going against affinities, void, which helps understand why those things like the stun maneuvered. Against affinity, the weak affinity champion will be the target for this and probably take quite a bit of damage. So it's going to be definitely tougher to keep one of those champions alive in in those situations, but as you can see, it's a pretty darn good team. And if you can last, honestly, if you can last 40 turns, you're doing 2 key damage most of the time anyway, as long as you bring a little bit of damage in. So, you know, with bring only Hellcat, being able to build a team that can do 2 key damage relatively easily is a huge boon for people, I think. And this is why, one of the reasons why this is a champion you want to get. And this is a team that you would build if you're trying to push it that little bit extra. So we got another Hellcat team for you guys. I hope you enjoy this. Now, I'm sure some of you are going, hey, can I use this on Nightmare? Absolutely, you can. It takes a little bit of manualing partway through, or you have to have a team tanky enough to survive a couple extra turns. Also, dealing with affinity becomes a little bit trickier, but this is a very old team. This is something that's been used for a long time. It definitely works, and I've seen people be able to 1-key Ultra Nightmare with this type of a team. The thing that's going to make it work best on Nightmare is actually having a Doom Priest in that Tatura role. That just works a lot better. Now, you can still use a Tatura or a Brogdon or somebody else with a 2-turn block debuff on a 3-turn cooldown. Totally will work, but you won't be able to block the debuff on the stun except for Tatura or Brogdon or whoever's actually placing that buff. So just keep that in mind, right? You're going to have to tank a stun in there. So as long as it's not Hellcat taking the stun, then you should be fine, really. And that's a great option, right? That way you don't have to switch out any champions. You don't have to change out any gear. You just run it a little bit different. You change the cooldown slightly, but all that information is on the website. It is on this build, and I'll have that link down below in the pinned comment description of this video as well. So you can just go directly to it and you know exactly what you're doing. But this is a really good team. It's a really good team, and it works really nicely. I still prefer the slow versions of these teams, generally for most people out there, but some of you have pretty awesome 4-3 ratio champs like Farrak and the Fat or Kreela that you want to go every time, right? And have them use all their skills every time. This is a great option for that. Maybe you got a Narma and you're like, I like what that did. I want to do it too. This is what you would do. This is how you would do it. So I definitely recommend getting this champion. I definitely recommend trying one of these teams. And hopefully this is the kind of one that'll work for you. But hopefully you guys enjoyed all this. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell. Until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.